Momentum Live. We're talking about mindset and entering and working with the uncomfortable here with Nicole Hamilton. And I want to introduce to you her body of work because she is very well rounded in the media as well as in the dance industry. And so here we go. Thank you for coming.
You're welcome. Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, especially because you're a busy woman. So I want to say thank you so much. So Nicole Hamilton is the founder and artistic director of, is it Inica? Did I pronounce it right? Inica Dance Industries. A certified dance educator, a member of Dance Masters of Canada and Dance Masters of America. And you just came back from a competition, right?
I did.
Yeah. Where was it again?
I was in Vancouver. Burnaby, to be specific.
Okay. Yeah, so you did a whole weekend of adjudication.
I did, yeah. It was a beautiful week.
Oh, that's nice. I always envy the adjudicators because it takes a lot of mental stamina to get through and be present with all of the
students. It's a long process, but it's totally worth it.
Nice. Yeah, and we'll get into that too. I know because I want to pick your brain on that because as a dance mom, anyway, I can do it. Moving on, she's served as a faculty member, master workshop leader, mentor, and guest teacher at institutes across Canada and the U.S., including but not limited to George Brown College, University of Toronto, and York University. And Hamilton serves as a reporter with Dance Channel Television, is a contributing host on the Career Buzz show, and a producer with Turnout Radio, CIUT 89.5 FM. And she's passionate about the wellness of dancers. She is a counselor, the board of director with Healthy Dancer Canada, and the Dancer Health Alliance of Canada. So nationwide, Nicole, you are really planting the seeds of awareness when it comes to dance health and dance as a passion. How do you put all your hats together to unify as a body of work,
Yeah, I got tired just listening to all of that because
you're doing it.
Yeah, you know what? At first, it was not easy. Yeah. And I even have moments now where it's not easy.
Right.
But I think how I integrate everything and make sure that I'm able to do it all is I try to be consistent with certain things. And one of those things is I make a habit of scheduling in Nicole time.
Oh.
I do it. So although it might look like I do have a lot of hats and I'm constantly busy, I also have a lot of Nicole time.
Right.
So if you open up my day timer, it will say time at the beach, or it will say rest time at the local fitness center or whatever the case is.
Right.
I need that time.
Yeah.
Because I got to spend time with Nicole.
Yes.
And just take that time to just relax, rejuvenate.
Yes. Yeah, because you're on a plane a lot, I would say. You're all over the place in terms of...
Yeah, the travel.
Yeah, the traveling. Yeah.
There are seasons where I travel more, so during competition season, definitely it's a lot busier.
Right.
I really enjoy traveling and getting to... I love airports.
Yeah.
I love airports. Yeah, I like being in airports and just walking around. Like, I'm a people watcher.
Yes.
But it can be very tiring sometimes to travel, especially when you're traveling to places that have, for example, being in Burnaby last week, that's a 3-hour time difference. So it takes a little bit of time for me to kind of readjust and recognize, I'm in a different time zone. So making sure that I schedule that time with Nicole to rest, rejuvenate, realign, so that I can make sure that I am consistent is important.
Right. And I think that's what a lot of people don't realize because, if you're looking at the highlights and even in the bio, there's a lot of active work going on. Yeah. Right? And there's a lot of active work to be able to create that impact, to meet the people and say, hey, I'm Nicole, I do this. And there's a lot of that background work. Yeah. But it's true. It's finding the spaciousness in your schedule, and you actually write it in.
I do.
Yeah, that's good.
I do.
That's good.
Because if I don't write it in, it's not going to happen.
Right.
And I realize that because I'm a workaholic, you know, and sometimes in a bad way.
Yeah, yeah.
And that means that sometimes I can work 14 hours and I make it happen.
Yeah,
so I will
yeah.
make sure that I'm working, and it took me some time to kind of figure this out, Blessyl.
Right, yeah.
But I realized, yeah, I've got to actually write it into my calendar so that I recognize that, okay, it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon, stop.
Right,
Stop.
yeah.
Stop what you're doing, take a 1 hour break, whether that is to, you know, read a book, or as I
Yes,
said,
yeah.
head to the beach,
Yeah.
or do what I've got to do to make sure that I'm, again, realigning. Yeah.
And I find that, yeah, it's impossible to be mentally focused for the full amount of time that you're awake.
Mhm.
So do you find that you've taken a look at your patterns or your energetic patterns, and then when you start to fade or lose focus, that's when you take a break, or whenever you squeeze it in? Like, what's your...
It's both.
Yeah.
I do try, I make sure I schedule it in, but I know when my body is starting to change and telling me you're shutting down, so it's time to stop. But again, I've not always been good at this.
Yeah.
I mean, I've become better over the years,
Yeah.
but I still see those peaks of times where I'm like, whoa, I'm reverting back to my old ways, and I'm working too much, and I need to take a break. For me, one of my indicators is that I've been a migraine sufferer for years.
Right.
So for me, when I get that migraine, that's my indication, or that slight headache, that's my indication. Stop what you're doing, because either you're not hydrated enough or you're working too hard. But again, it's such a work in progress, because there's sometimes as artists, we're like, okay, I gotta keep going.
Yes, yeah.
Right? And I've been guilty of that. I've gotta keep going, I've gotta keep pressing. Yeah, the head hurts a little bit, but I can work through it.
Right.
You know, so recognizing and understanding our bodies, what we're capable of doing when we need to stop, is so key.
Yeah, and I know it's true when I have that similar problem where sometimes it's launch time, or sometimes it's, you know, you have to kind of focus on the work, and I don't believe there's anything as such thing as balance. I like to call my life like sprint interval training, where like you go hard and then you can walk the rest, and you go hard and then you go walk the rest.
Ooh, I like that. Yeah.
And then sometimes the season is that you just have to get your work done, and the workouts or your self-care will look a little bit different, but you just have to get it in.
Yeah.
Maybe it just means you eat without the phone.
Right.
Like, because I find that I multitask sometimes.
Yeah, I do as well.
Yeah.
Because it's what we're trained to do.
Yeah, and it's that hypervigilance that can get addictive, because you feel like you're in control, but at the same time then the body doesn't have time to recover. Right?
Yeah, it's so true. And I found that because we're trained to do that, because we're trained to just keep going, the show must go on, because of the fact that we're constantly trained, and that was integrated like from a very young age for me to keep going and keep pushing as an artist. There are so many times where I just will all of a sudden I literally would just crash.
Yeah, it's not sustainable.
It's absolutely not sustainable. And because also, you know, one of the things I recognize as well, which I'm sure you're familiar with, is the whole idea of perfectionism as well.
Yes,
you know, and there's a lot of that as well that's really been, that's kind of manifested in certain ways into our art form. So feeling like I have to be on my best, looking at my best at all times, operating at 100% is something that has been, just again from a young age. So I've recognized, okay, time to plan in that rest time, time to stop, time to take a break, realign, and also recognize that operating at 100% is not feasible all the time.
Not all the time, yeah. And it takes experience to know how to layer it in, right? Like, and to know like how, like there are some grounding rituals. Do you do any grounding rituals to get you into the present state of mind? Like, for example, if you have a client for counseling, or when you're teaching.
For me, prayer is a huge one. Because I grew up in a home where church was every Sunday, whether you wanted to be at church or not, you had to go. Church. So you know, I think as I grew older, I gained a greater amount of appreciation for my faith and love for my faith. So for me, getting grounded a lot of times, most times, is prayer.
Right.
But mindful breathing as well is something that I've really made sure I incorporated during my practice.
Right.
It's something I do very often. You know, I take that time to just stop, I close my eyes, I breathe, I'm aware of my surroundings, and aware of the sound of my breath as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Because I'm so conscious of the fact that the sound of my breath is so relaxing, just hearing the inhale and listening to the exhale. So mindful breathing practice is something that, that I've done a lot. Just in order to get myself
to get yourself back into the world. Yes, you know, and breathing is very important because it is a way to turn off the stress response, that you can breathe and get out of your head, right? And I think that's part of the reason why dance is very healing. And I know that's a modality. I mean, you've still managed to keep dance in your world up to this point. So what is it about dance that you feel so passionate that you want to tell the world, you know, like, because you are working in different channels, you know, to interview artists and to educate artists about health. And so what is that thing about dance for you personally that kind of drives the work that you do?
Wow, I think it's so many different things. One of the things for me, what drives me and inspires me with dance is the fact that I get a chance to meet people who are coming from different walks of life every single day. And they're teaching me things.
Right.
Yeah, they're teaching me things. So that definitely inspires me and drives me to sit back, learn from their experiences, which also ends up impacting my own experience. What also drives me is watching other people's creative approach to the creation process.
Right.
That's very cool to me.
Yeah.
Because we're all coming with different approaches.
Yes.
And my approach tends to be very holistic. So when I sit and watch someone else's approach, it's like, oh wow, yeah, that's very cool. And getting a chance to learn from them again is just, it's an incredible thing.
Right.
So I think it's really people and their experiences, their history that tends to inspire me. Music inspires me greatly. I'm a huge music lover. But yeah, it's so many different layers.
There is so many different layers.
We need 3 hours for me to answer that
I
question.
know. Dance has so many layers. I mean, yes, it's true. It breaks down boundaries, I think, with music. Music helps you to open up cultures.
Definitely.
Right? And understand the culture, where dance really started off as a means for storytelling. And so for me, I get really passionate that when you are introduced to a certain cultural style of dance, or even the modern style of dance, you know, hip hop or tap dancing, you need to know where that came from. Because when you understand the history of how it's evolved to today, then you can understand the musicality and the embodiment of that particular music.
I love that you said that. And I often tell my students as well, we're not only artists, right? We are so much more than that. We are storytellers. And that's something I often will share with them, because when you think about what we're doing exactly that. We get the chance to open up a book, the book of our own lives, and sometimes the books of other people's lives, pull from those pages and put it into movement, and then be able to share it with the rest of the world. Like, that's an incredible thing. It's a very incredible thing for us to be able to do that.
And do you find, like, you know, for me, I get really passionate about the same thing, is like to be able to teach a young dancer or performer, whatever it is, to be able to just stand on the stage and own the space in their breath. That just standing should just resonate to the back of the room and like communicate right to the heart. Like when you watch Alvin Ailey and their dancers, they could just walk out and you're like, okay, I love it, I'm crying already, you know? Like,
and they haven't
done anything. They've just, you know, they're just there, right? Rather than a performance falling flat, because they're embodying the spirit of the body at that present time. It is transcendent. And then you add music, and then so if you're able to communicate with the audience in that realm of embodied movement, I think that's really where dance is. That's where I feel like I get a little, rather than just movement to music and it's non-intentional. I mean, that's dance too, but I mean, how do you find it when you're adjudicating competition? Because different studios, there's an aesthetic, and that's great too. I mean, there's so many art forms, but how can you kind of modify from a certain?
How do I modify?
Yeah. Like when you're adjudicating, because it's also like developmental stages and how mature they are to collectively connect with the audience. Like, what are you looking for as an adjudicator? Yeah.
Intention and purpose.
Okay.
And it's something I will say often into that microphone.
Right.
You know, where's the intention? Where's the purpose?
Right.
You know, in what you're doing, because I'm so proud of you. I see it.
Yes.
I see it. And it's something I think that we do need to ask ourselves when we are doing this work. So yeah, when adjudicating intention, purpose, connection as well, right? Making sure, you know, you mentioned Ailey, for example, when that dancer gets on that stage, are they making a connection with the individuals that they're presenting to? Right. And sometimes it doesn't happen right away. Right. Because sometimes, you know, sometimes a little bit of the creation process happens on stage, right there in front of us, which is a beautiful thing to happen. Right. So that means that sometimes the connection with the audience may not happen right away. But once they start to move, is it progressing towards that? So I'm normally looking for that. Is there a connection? Is there that intention and purpose, as I mentioned? Are you believable? Right. And that's huge for me. Do I believe you when you are presenting? I want to be able to feel something, whether that's happiness or even anger. I want to be able to get something out of that performance. So believability is huge.
So what would you say, like, how can a young artist or a mature artist become believable?
You know, a mentor of mine told me many years ago, and I love this. And shout out to Roger Gushway, because he was just the most amazing, amazing apostle and pastor in my life. But he said, if you don't believe it, Nicole, when you are performing, when you're presenting, if you don't believe it, your audience is not going to believe it. And that has always resonated with me. And so what I would say to an artist is, do you believe it yourself? Because if you walk out on that stage and you don't believe the story that you're telling, but you expect other people to believe it, it's going to be a little bit difficult, because the audience is smart, they're wise, and they'll be able to recognize, there doesn't seem to be a connection between that artist and the music or the story that they're telling, so now I can't connect with them. So what I would say to an artist is, do you believe it? And the way in which you can believe it is meditate on it. Meditate on that song while you're washing the dishes. Meditate on it while you're sitting on the bus. Meditate on that story. And then, of course, get the movement in your body in the studio, right? But make sure that you're meditating on it so that you can believe that story. You can believe when you're supposed to be presenting, so there's intention and there's a purpose when you're presenting it. So you got to meditate on it so that it's believable for you before it's believable for the audience.
That's right. And so a lot of this stuff, I know, really is driven by mindset, because you have to have intention. You have to intentionally put yourself in the proper frame of mind, because when you don't feel like doing it, when you don't really believe it, but it's not your choreography, right? So how do you shift your mindset so that you can output something with more impact?
If you don't believe the
story. Let's say because it's a job. It's a job, or you're a young one, and this is what your dance teacher gave you, and you're like, oh, okay, you know.
That's a great question. Ask questions. That's what I love telling dancers. Ask questions. It's okay. Know the value of your voice and know the value and importance of the questions that you have. So if you are feeling like you're not connecting to a piece that a choreographer has given you, you've got to ask the question. It's so important. Ask that choreographer, what inspired you to make that piece? Where's that story coming from? I'm having trouble connecting with it. I don't really fully understand it. And I really want to be able to give it my best. So ask the choreographer questions about the piece, its inspiration, where it's come from.
And then from there you can fully understand to embody it. I know recently I started to learn elements of Filipino folk dance, but I didn't grow up with it, and working with professional dancers who kind of just know it was quite intimidating. So understanding, okay, what does this movement mean? What does this move, you know, and they're like, oh, well, that just means this. And I'm like, well, I had no idea.
Right.
You know, I'm just mimicking, because I think dancers are very well trained in copying, right? And you know, when you get to a certain level where you can copy the groove, you can copy the mood, but then if you don't really understand why, then you can only take that performance so far, right?
100%. Yeah, it's so important for us to ask questions.
Right.
And I really believe that once we continue to ask those questions, it also does a lot for us. It does more than us understanding the fabric of the movement. It actually gives us a greater understanding of the work that we're doing, why it even exists.
Right.
So asking those questions is huge.
And so when we talk about stepping into the uncomfortable, because, you know, asking the questions makes things less uncomfortable because we're empowering ourselves with the information. But, I mean, growth only happens when we're out of our comfort zone. So what are some of your tools that you've done to grow? Because it takes a lot of courage to be able to be a producer of a show and, you know, adjudicate and be a counselor. You know, you're very well involved, and there's a lot of learning to do in those processes as you're involved with these many committees. And how do you press forward in learning new skills?
Yeah, I think, you know, there have been a lot of times where I've had first times and it was scary. You know, because I've never stepped into that zone before.
Right.
You know, stepping into being a reporter for Dance Channel Television, when I finally got that opportunity, and knowing what might look, what that opportunity might look like.
Right.
But in particular, the work that I do on a weekly basis with Turnout Radio, that was scary.
Yeah.
Because I'll never forget getting onto that microphone for the first time and just thinking, what am I going to say? What am I supposed to say?
Right.
Honestly, it goes back to asking the questions.
Right.
I asked a lot of them.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to make sure that I was doing the best that I could.
Right.
But also, one of the things that I tend to do, even more so the older that I'm getting, is I just jump in. I just be like Nike and I just do it. Because if I just sit back and I do this, I will analyze, okay, what will work about it, what potentially might not work, and I realize I start to create this inner dialogue.
That's right.
And I don't want to allow any negative messages to come in.
Right.
So how do I do it? Is I ask those questions. I make sure that there's a positive dialogue that's going on within inside of Nicole.
Right.
I tell myself that I can do it. I tell myself I'm going to be amazing.
Right.
So I create that inner dialogue, and I make sure that there are consistent positive messages. I'll tell Nicole, you're going to be good at this. This is going to be awesome. Today's going to be the best day of your life.
Right.
Every single day, Blessyl, when I wake up, every day, I tell myself today is going to be the best day of your life. Every single day. Even if I had a hard day the day before, I make that declaration. And I figure if I make that declaration, then I'm already speaking life into whatever it is that I'm about to do.
Right.
So for me, it's more than the questions. It's about that positive dialogue.
Right.
And it's about, making sure that I'm like, okay, I might have a reservation, but no, I'm just going to be like Nike and I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to jump in.
Yeah. And I think that's important to just literally just do it. Just do it. And even the same thing with this show, like there's a lot of stuff happening in the background, which you saw. Perfectionism is the greatest staller, right?
Wow.
And really, if you can just get started, there's always room for refining, especially for those who are not growth averse. There will be always room for refining, right? Because that's the whole idea of it. So just get started. And the interesting thing too, when I was on Turnout and previous to that, what was it called again? It was previous to Turnout was called
Evidence.
Evidence.
Yes.
And that was my first time in the radio booth. And it's very different live, similar to a camera, because you can't see the audience. And so you can kind of underestimate who's listening. But Turnout has quite a lot of viewership. And so taking that responsibility to be as articulate and efficient with your words, you know, that's a skill too.
Yeah. You know, I love live radio.
Yeah.
I love it because it challenges me. I love it because it puts me on the spot.
Yeah.
Perfectionism is something that can, you know, try to rear its head, its ugly head.
Right,
to try and make you feel like you have to be constantly perfect. And the thing is that none of us have, at least I don't believe, none of us have the ability to be perfect.
Right.
Perfection is not attainable.
Right.
It's not. Being at your best is attainable.
Yes, yeah.
So what I've found that I've had to do whenever it is that I make a mistake, because I will.
Yeah.
And I have.
Yeah.
Live radio, right? I might mispronounce something.
Right.
And in my early days, I would immediately have self-doubt. And I think, oh man, I made so many mistakes. How embarrassing. There are thousands of listeners. Nobody's going to listen to this show again. You know, because of that mistake.
That's right.
But one of the things that, again, I've started to include the past many years, I would probably even say close to the past few years, is instant forgiveness.
Oh, instant forgiveness.
Instant forgiveness. Because it's not something that I used to do. I would labor on that error or that mistake for hours, for weeks, for months, for years.
Oh, wow,
Yeah, literally labor on it. Because I felt like my brain was wired to try and attain perfection.
Yes.
Right? So what I've been doing is saying, nope, I'm instantly forgiving myself. Instantly.
Yes.
And I found that that's been easier for me to do in the last couple of years. Again, it's not easy.
Yes.
Because sometimes it rears its ugly head, that perfectionism.
Yes.
Right? But I'm like, no, I'm going to instantly forgive. Made a mistake, instantly forgive myself.
Right.
Because there's nothing that I can do to go back and capture that moment.
That's right.
You know, I can't automatically make sure that nobody in the world heard that mistake. It's already happened, it's already out there. So I have two choices. I can either instantly forgive myself and move on, or I can sit and labor on it.
That's right.
Okay.
So it's fine.
Okay. This is probably going to sound different. Sorry.
It's okay. No, yeah, it's fine. Okay. So in one sentence, how would you describe momentum?
How would I describe momentum?
Yeah. How do you embody? Yeah. How do you embody it? Yeah.
I embody it by ensuring that I'm consistent, especially with the positive messages that I give Nicole, and I make sure that I have a constant attitude of self-love for myself and recognizing instant forgiveness when I go out there and I share this work with the world. It helps me to be consistent, but it also helps me to embody the love that I have for this.
That's amazing. Thank you so much, Nicole, for sharing all of that, sharing all of your messages about vulnerability and mindset and perseverance, especially with the many hats that you wear, and being able to connect with so many people through these different mediums of media to create that impact. I think you're gifted, and I want to thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on Momentum.
Thank you.
And thank you everyone for tuning in. Next week I have my last episode for the season 1, and